Hello friends. In this video, we'll continue what I started in the previous two videos regarding the relationships between decision makers and analysts. And I want to close this introduction by mentioning three main, or if you will, four main topics that are important for this relationship. One important aspect is to have the decision maker to be surrounded by analysts who are also interested in business, not only on the analytical part of things, but also very interested in actually creating an impact in the business. This will help the decision maker to actually get the most out of the analytics, because if there is the interest there, this connection will work much better and the interests of both sides will be better aligned. The decision maker has to focus on the beginning and the end of the process. The beginning is really focusing on the framing of the problem, formulating the right questions. We mentioned that before. The end of the process, however, is presenting those results, keeping in mind who is going to be the audience and who is going to be the person or who is going to deliver that information. We mentioned before, it's going to be the analysts, and the role of the decision maker in this case is either taking an action or taking that information and then presenting that to the other people who is interested in that decision. It's also important for the decision maker to keep in mind that the stakeholders usually are interested in things like ROI and conversion funnels and revenue and things like profit. So you have to mold your language into these variables that are interesting to them and focus the results of the analysis that you're getting from the analysts in this direction. Another thing that is also important is that by the end of the meeting, by the end of the analysis, you bring together stakeholders and analysts so they can actually do a deep dive into the results that you just presented. In your daily work with analysts, it's important that you have some understanding and that you are able to challenge the way they work. At least that you are able to pose questions that make them stop and reflect about the work they're doing. One good way to do this is to ask, for instance, the following questions. For instance, about the origin of the data. What are the data sources that are being used and why those data sources are being selected? Are there alternative data sources? It is also important to ask, is it the data that is being used for the analysis representative of the population? Is it the sample really representative of the population? What if it's not? What are you sure that this sample is representative of the population, that we are going to have meaningful results that we can make inference afterwards towards the whole population? It's also critical that you reflect about the outliers. In all samples, in all data sets, you're going to have outliers. Those are individuals or those are samples in your data that will behave differently than most of the data. And you have to make an inquiry about the outliers. Are they included in the analysis? Are they excluded? If they're excluded, why are they excluded? If they're included, why are they included? What is going to be the impact of the outliers? How important are they? Those are questions that are critical. There are situations in which outliers actually may shift completely the result of one analysis, whereas in other cases, you can safely ignore them, and you need to engage in that conversation with your analysts. While your analysts are coming up with a new model, they have to figure out hypotheses. Obviously, those hypotheses are supported by the ideas, the framing of the problem that you initially did, but they will come up with other hypotheses. You have to ask them, what are those hypotheses that are supporting the work they're doing? And why are they sure that those hypotheses are valid? And if possible, that they defend those hypotheses. In the same way that they come up with different hypotheses, they will come up with solutions, models, representations of how your business is working. And you have to ask why you choose this particular analytical process or this particular model to solve this problem. It's important also to review the alternatives. Why not using the alternatives? You know, if you are wondering about the alternatives, you also have to ask, well, what if you have chosen one of them? What is this? What is going to be the outcome? So they expand the way they think, and they wonder, and they also step back, and also for you to understand better why they make the decisions they made, so you can defend better when you are presenting to stakeholders. It's interesting also to ask, what is the relationship, or why the variables that you identify as independent variables have a relationship with the dependent variables? Is it really a causal relationship, or is it just some artifact of randomness? This is important to understand, because you are going to make decisions, and you're going to, the independent variables are the knobs that you are using to control your business. So in challenging this, in understanding why this relationship was made, how is this relationship validated, you can better understand how you can act and better control the outcomes that you expect from the analysis. Finally, in many organizations, people want to please the decision makers. That's part of human nature. And if you have some hypothesis, if you come with some ideas to your analyst, there might be a risk that they will just support your ideas with the research they do. So you have to bring in the culture that you say, well, you know what, we need to separate my ideas from the persona. And that's important to create this safety culture that analysts are willing to challenge our ideas. It doesn't matter where they came from. And so you focus on the real truth. So you focus on actually what is happening, and not on your hypothesis or your beliefs.